I just finished my freshman year at college. I'm a female, and Snapchat is my main way of communicating with my friends one day. I got a Snapchat notification that a boy named Ryan had added me. I opened Snapchat and added him back. I checked his Snap score and saw that it was 52,000. So he seemed to be a real guy. His username was Ryan. And then a bunch of numbers that I can't remember. I sent him a snap of the top of my head and asked, "Who is this?" About a minute later, he responded. I opened his snap, which was all black, and said, "I saw you on Quick 8 and thought I should add you." I left him on red after that, but I didn't delete him within a couple hours. I had forgotten all about him that night. I was laying in bed and watching some TV before I went to sleep. I started to hear a light tapping on my window. I shut off the TV so that I could hear it better after a couple seconds. I heard it again. There was 2 large bushes in front of my window, and when I looked out, all I could see was leaves and darkness. Then I saw it. My hand came up from below the window and tapped a few times. I ran out of my room and got my dad, who was in the living room watching TV. He went outside and returned several minutes later, saying he didn't see anyone. I went back into my bedroom and tried to sleep. It took me a long time, but there was no more tapping on my window, and eventually I got some sleep. The next morning I woke up and checked my phone. There was a snap from Ryan. It was a picture of my house that said, "Why didn't you open your window for me last night?" I went to respond, but he had deleted me. I thought about going to the police, but all I had was his username, and I figured there was nothing that could be done that night. Was once again laying in bed and relaxing before I got tired enough to sleep once again. I heard tapping this time instead of running to find my dad. I texted him on my phone and said that the tapping was going on again. It continued for about another minute before I heard commotion outside my window and the sound of my dad yelling. I then called the police, and within 5 minutes they arrived. My dad was holding down the man, who turned out to be in his 30s. Happened, I turned off my Snap maps, and I don't add people back unless I know them. This happened a few weeks ago at about 10 o'clock p.m. On a Sunday night, my best friend texted me and asked me to come over. He said that a girl he had been Snapchatting wanted to come over and hang out, and she was bringing a friend, so I should hang out with them. He said we were all probably just going to sit and chill in the car and chat. I didn't really want to go, but he's my best friend, and he's like a brother to me, so I thought, why not be spontaneous? I drove to his house and parked on the side of the road in front. He came out and got into the car with me. He said he had been Snapchatting with this girl for about a month, and she seemed pretty cool. He showed his Snap map to me, which shows the location of his friends. If they had it on, the girl had hers on, and it showed her on the road, which was about 10 minutes away. My friend and I hung out for a while in my car, then check under Snap map again. It showed her in a city that was past. My friend was confused as to where she was going, and so he sent her a snap. We waited several minutes for her to reply, but she never did. We checked her map again and saw her in the parking lot of a park, which was about 20 minutes away. My friend tried calling her, but she didn't pick up. It was now almost midnight, and we decided to call it off and both go home and go to bed. Just then she snapped my friend back and said she was on her way. My friend decided to let her come over after all and said, okay. About 20 minutes later, we saw a car pull up into the street and park about 20 feet behind us. My friend told her we were in a car, and in front of her we watched her get out. And when she did, we could see there was at least 3 large men in the car with her. Did you see that? My friend asked the man. I said yes. He responded. She got out and started to walk to our car. After she got about 10 feet, my friend told me to drive. I put the car in drive and pulled out of there. As I did, the girl looked pretty surprised and just stood there before the car she was in drove up to her, and she got back in. I pulled off my friend's street and could see the car was starting to follow us. I turned as soon as I could and tried to lose the car. I drove a couple of miles toward the middle school that was near us, and I could barely see the car behind us. When I started to drive past the school, I could see a police car sitting in the parking lot. So I drove in and entered the parking lot. The car started to follow us and then drove past. We parked next to the cop and he questioned us what we were doing. We told him the story, and when my friend went to pull up the Snapchat, he had already been blocked. The cop told us to go home, and we did. I'm glad my friend told me to drive because I don't know what would have happened to us. This story happened to me about 3 years ago. Back then, I was really into Snapchat, and I used it more than any other form of communication. I had a lot of friends on Snapchat, and a good number of them I didn't even know. They just had mutual friends, or maybe they went to the same school as me. I remember a girl in the med, Nadia, posted on her story that she was selling her MacBook Pro computer for $1,000. This was a pretty good deal, and I was in the market for a new laptop. So I responded to her story saying I was interested. I offered her $800 and we settled on $900. We agreed to meet the next day in the parking lot of a garden center just off a highway. It was about a 20-minute drive for me, and I arrived to see the place was pretty quiet with about 5 to 10 cars in the parking lot. I snapped her and told her I was there. She responded by asking what kind of car I was in. I told her and she said she would be right there. I looked around, but I didn't see anybody in the parking lot, just some empty cars. I was parked next to some trees and a dumpster on one end of the parking lot. I started to go on my phone when suddenly, out of nowhere, I heard something hit the back of my car. I turned around to see a man behind my car. Then I heard something come from the front end of my car, and when I looked, I saw another man out of my windshield. They both started hitting my car from the front and back. I scrambled to start my engine. The man tried to block me, and by grabbing on to the front and end of my car so that I couldn't get out without hitting them. I was able to turn and push one of the men back just enough so that I had some space to turn and then back out. They both came running to my car and hit it a couple times, but I floored it and was able to get out of there. I drove straight home. When I got home, my car sustained some damage, but nothing too serious. I never bothered to report the incident because when I got back, of course, I was blocked by Nadia.